Hi everyone, this is Mari Craig, and you're listening to the Small Steps to Wellness show, a podcast where we discuss how we can achieve more wellness in our lives one small step at a time. For the past 6 odd years, I've taken a special interest in nutrition and I've changed the diet of my family on its head. But as I've dived deeper into the world of nutrition, I have learned that health is so much more than just what we put on our plate. This is why on this podcast we will be talking nutrition, mental health, being in alignment, holistic health care, self care, raising children, and more. We will also be hearing stories of women's journeys to overcome trauma and what it has taught them on the way. When we share our stories, we realize we are not alone and that things can change for the better. I'm so glad to have you with me on this journey as I explore what health and wellness truly encompass. If you like what you're hearing, please consider rating the show with a 5-star rating and sharing it with your friends. It really makes a big difference. Now, on with today's show.
Hello and welcome to the Small Steps to Wellness show with me, your host, Mari Craig, where we are discussing how we can achieve wellness in our lives one small step at a time. Today, I am joined by Suzy Reading. Now, Suzy is a mother of two. She's an author, she's a chartered psychologist and a coach, and she used to be my yoga teacher. She specialises in self-care, helping people manage their stress, emotions, and an energetic bank balance. And it was her life experience of motherhood colliding with the terminal illness of her father that sparked her passion for self-care, which she now teaches to her clients, young and old, to cope during periods of stress, loss, and change, and to boost their resilience in the face of future challenges. Suzy is on the editorial board for Motherdom magazine, the psychology expert for well-being brand Neome Organics, and is a founding member of the Fab Nourish app. She figure skated her way through her childhood, that sounds amazing, and growing up on the northern beaches of Sydney, and now makes her home in the hills of Hertfordshire in the UK. And her first book, The Self-Care Revolution, was published by Aster, and that came out in 2017. I can't believe it's been that long. Stand Tall Like a Mountain, and that was Mindfulness and Self-Care for Children and Parents, and The Little Book of Self-Care. They both came out in 2019. Now, Self-Care for Tough Times and her first children's book, This Book Will Help Make You Happy. They were published in 2021. Her first journal, And Breathe, is hot off the press, and that looks so fascinating. We're going to be talking about that. And the latest book, Sit to Get Fit, is available for pre-order now. Phew, you've had a busy few years, Suzy. Welcome.
Oh, Mari, thank you so much for having me. What a joy.
Amazing. Did you ever think you were going to be a published author?
Oh, do you know what? That was actually my childhood aspiration. I wanted to be a writer. And do you know what? I actually missed out on the journalism degree that I thought was necessary to be a writer. I missed out by 0.2 of a mark. And I studied psychology instead because my big brother said, if you know how to write, you don't need to, you don't have to be taught at university. Go and study something that you can write about. And 20 years later, he was spot on. That's exactly what I'm doing.
But isn't that amazing? I wanted to study journalism as well, but I wanted to learn how to make radio shows, and that never happened. And here we are.
Wow. Doesn't it just go to show, there are so many different routes to the same place.
Exactly.
And all of those twists and turns, right? They make our careers so much richer. And all of those things that I've learned along the way have been so instrumental into the work that I do now. So no regrets.
Yes, exactly. And I love that because you then have something to write about with your psychology degree, as you say. And I'm so obsessed with food. And so all maybe we needed was something that really sparked this passion. They were like, okay, now we're here. That's so right. I can't wait to get my hand on that And Breathe journal. So we're going to talk a bit about that. But what's going on with you now? What are you focusing on these days? Because I asked you to come on because obviously I've known you for years, but you've been very straightforward and vocal on Instagram the last few months, and I've loved it. So where's that come from? You are giving us permission to have a bath, to giving us permission to melt down. You're giving us permission to just be. And where does that come from?
Well, I'm absolutely passionate about empowering people with the tools of self-care, with nourishing practices. But bigger than that, really, it's the skill of self-compassion. And Instagram is just for me, one, it's a little bit of self-expression. It's a bit of intention setting. But what I've really loved over the last few years is that it's a very real hub of connection. There's a real beating heart to it. So I post regularly as a way of giving shape to my day. And so often these are little notes that I'm writing to myself, and I love that they land for other people as well.
Yeah. Because this is, I was going to ask you, because what I take from a lot of what you're writing about, I would assume comes from yourself, but also from your clients. And that is this notion of society wants us or tells us you should be doing this, you should be doing that. Kids are back at school, you should jump straight back into everything. You should, and be so bloody productive all the time. And I'm not sure that's healthy. So does this come from a personal place, or does it come from your clients, or is it a combination perhaps?
It's a beautiful melting pot of both.
Yeah.
There is so much noise out there. We're embedded in a culture that glorifies productivity. We sort of equate busyness with importance. It's also consumerism. It's fitness culture. It's beauty culture. It's all of this stuff that tells us that we're not enough. We need to be doing more or purchasing this to be enough. And it's such a nonsense. So yeah, I think it's a lot of my message is about how can we tune out that noise and get clear on what's important to us, and how can we set those things into motion in everyday life.
Yeah, this is it. There's a lot of pressure to be and to do, and I think it takes a very strong person, maybe, or person with the right tools to be able to shut that out and go, right, so this is what I'm going to do. So how does it work then? I mean, if I come to you and go, do you know what, I am so stressed out, it's insane, I don't know what to do, I feel like I'm not achieving, I feel like everyone's doing better than me, I feel like, all of these things. So where do you start?
Well, we start with, I'm a safe place to give voice to all of that stuff. So often we just need to be able to say it out loud, to be able to take a look at that and go, hang on, do I need to keep holding myself to this artificial standard? Does this actually serve me? Or can I craft my own sense of what does a well-lived life look like? What does it mean to be a contributing, valuable member of society? I can choose that for me. I don't need to be told. I don't need to have it rammed down my throat by an external source. And then it's about taking a look at the concrete behaviors that we're engaging in. If we want to feel clear-headed and aligned, well, then we need to, one, get clear on our values, but also have a look at, what is the scaffolding that we need in our day to be able to function as a human being, and then give ourselves permission to do those things.
Yeah. So I find that really important as well. But then I think, is it easier to give yourself permission to do those things if you have more time in the day? I'm just thinking, if I'm sat at home, but what is it like for people who, let's say, come to you and go, I've got a full-time job, I don't know where to fit any of this stuff in?
Yeah. Well, this
is me. If I can also interrupt both of us. I mean, as a working parent as well. I mean,
yeah. So much of what I prescribe for my clients is not actually doing something extra. It's actually changing the lens through which we see an existing activity or an existing behavior. Yeah. So it's not about adding. It's actually changing how we do things that are already happening in our day. So it doesn't have to be extra. It doesn't have to be more. It can be these tiny little habits that we weave into our day that can make all the difference. It's in how we move, how we sit, how we eat our food, how we dress ourselves, how we shower ourselves, how we talk to ourselves.
Yeah, that's
none of these things take any extra time, but how we do them makes an incredible difference.
Absolutely. The how we talk to ourselves. I mean, we're not especially compassionate are we, or self-compassionate, really. I know, you know, what I'm like, and I can imagine that I'm no different from a lot of other, especially women. I think we're very, very hard on ourselves, and we keep saying, like, you wouldn't speak to a child like this. So, but for some reason, as soon as you've grown up, it's okay to treat yourself like dirt, really. And where does that come from?
Well, I think there's this sort of messaging that tells us that if you want to perform better, that you should be tough on yourself, right? And that's where we get punitive with ourselves, especially if we make an error. It's all these character assassinations, when in actual fact, research shows us that self-forgiveness and self-compassion actually help us make better choices more often.
Yeah.
They actually boost our willpower. Yeah. So in actual fact, being tender with ourselves, using coaxing, gentle inner dialogue, actually creates a better outcome.
I guess
so
we feel like we're in a safer place
of what we all think.
Yes, yeah, because you feel like you're in a safer place to express yourself, and so you're less afraid of making those mistakes. The chances are you're then also more open to making more the right choices. I don't know.
Totally. Well, as soon as we start talking to ourselves with that harsh, negative, judgmental, punitive inner voice, it elicits the stress response. Yeah, where we sort of feel like we're in self-defense mode, where it limits our choices, where we're sort of knee-jerk reaction. Yeah. But as soon as we tap into that compassionate voice, well, then we're more likely to be operating from, the rest and digest portion of our nervous system, which allows us far greater flexibility of thinking. Yeah, where we've got perspective, where we, instead of catastrophizing and generalizing and taking things personally, we can say, oh, hang on. Yeah, this happened, but maybe it happened for these reasons, or maybe this thing I did didn't work, but I could try this, or, okay, so this mistake or this thing that went skew, if what I've learned from this is, and I'll try this differently. Like, it's a completely different mindset. And it takes some effort in creating that habit of thinking in that way.
Yeah, or like deconditioning yourself,
totally doable.
right? Yeah.
It's just something that we can learn. And I think it's just acknowledging that being tough on ourselves actually doesn't serve us.
No.
It doesn't improve the outcome. It doesn't help us step up and be the people that we aspire to be. So let's do it differently. Yeah.
Yes. What do people come to then, your clients? I mean, actually, we can even talk about, what I think is really, really interesting, and you have heard this so many times. You published a book in the self-care for tough times. That was written before we hit any lockdown, wasn't it?
It was, yes. That was actually written in response to Self-Care Revolution was sort of the introduction to self-care, but I wanted to write something more specifically about how to navigate tough times, because self-care needs to take a totally different shape in those periods of life where we don't have the same resources or funds or energy or freedom, right? And it was also kind of written in response to some things that were happening in my personal life. I had some very close friends who were experiencing really traumatic life events, and I just thought, oh my goodness, I want to create a resource for these people that, no one's got the energy to sit and read through a dense textbook. I wanted to be able to just provide little, open it up at this page and there'll be a soothing practice to try. Or there'll just be a phrase, a mantra that will just give you a little pocket of peace. So that's where Self-Care for Tough Times came from. And then lo and behold, COVID-19 happened. And it was like, I knew that book would be helpful for everyone at some point in their lives. I just had no idea that it was going to be helpful for everyone at the same time, because we were going through this incredible collective trauma.
Yes, exactly.
Because
that's exactly what, because that's what I wanted to ask you, because your work as a coach and psychologist must have become quite different the past couple of years, I would have thought. Or have you seen a way that that something has changed? What do people come to you with now that they might not have come to you with before? Or like what is different?
I think that the real underlying theme that just about every single client is presenting with is a deep fatigue. Yeah. Everyone is exhausted. And so many people are questioning why. You know, they're thinking, oh, all I've had to do is stay at home. Why am I so tired? And grief as well. This is the other collective theme. And I think it's not very well understood. We associate grief with bereavement, but in actual fact, we grieve for a variety of very valid reasons, not just the loss of life. It's, lost imagined hopes and futures, lost opportunities to come together. It's time apart, and the fractures that creates in family dynamics, and how to heal that. It's pretty enormous what we're all navigating right now. So many changes on so many fronts, and still in the midst of great uncertainty.
Yes, and I think the uncertainty creates feeling of stress as well, and this bit of anxiety and panic. And yeah, certainly, I can recognize a lot of these feelings in myself, what you're mentioning, because I've, just talking about when do we take our holidays this year? I have no clue what's going to happen. Do we have something to look forward to? Or are we just going to be on this sort of hamster wheel of, it's I suppose that is a kind of a grief as well, because you, as I say, lost opportunity. And it's not like I need to go, far away on holiday, but like, can I book a cottage somewhere in the UK at some point? Or am I going to be in yet another lockdown? Is the world's full of uncertainty at the moment, and that is bloody exhausting.
Definitely. And what you're describing there is a loss of autonomy, a loss of freedom. And this is, it's also in terms of, so many people are experiencing financial instability, and, we can't express ourselves. And I still haven't seen my mum. We've booked to go at Easter to Australia, and I've just got everything crossed, but it's kind of like, keep things small so that we're not disappointed. But if those things don't happen on their own, you've got to plan them. And if they don't happen, then we've got that loss to mourn as well. It's very challenging to pick our way through this.
Yeah. How has it been then for you? I mean, your family's very far away. Mine is only in Norway, but you still can't go. We were able to go for Christmas, and I experienced a lot of those feelings that you were just describing now. Up until the very moment when we landed, and after we got out of the airport in Oslo, that's when I finally was like, okay, it's actually happened. But until then, you are on high alert all the time. And that's also over a period of time, that's also physically really unhealthy. You talked about the rest and digest system, and that's just not happening at all when you're in this state of constant anxiety. So what's it been like?
That's right.
You? I mean, you have all the tools, but it's easy. I suppose it's easy to tell people what to do sometimes, isn't it? And sometimes doing the things.
Yeah, I'll put my hand up and say there have been times when I've really struggled over the last 2 years. I think the hardest part for me was the winter lockdown of early 2021, because I wasn't expecting to be homeschooling the kids, and I had a manuscript to write, and I had my usual workload, and it was just a collision of all of these life demands, competing life demands, coupled with bleak weather and an unknown sort of, this thing just spooled out in front of us. We didn't know how long it was going to be. And that was just a pressure cooker, recipe for, it was horrendous.
Yeah.
And in that time, it was like, how could I soothe my nervous system? It was legs up the wall, it was breathing practices, it was rituals of touch, kind words, but I struggled, and I really think it's important for people to understand that the very normal and natural response to tough times is to struggle. It doesn't matter what tools you have at your fingertips touch. The fact is, the human response is to struggle. And I really want to sort of challenge this notion of resilience as being seen as impervious to stress and anxiety and overwhelm and depression. No one is immune. And sometimes actually being resilient involves us falling apart and having a big cry, letting it all out. It's not about not feeling or an absence of challenge. Yeah. So I think my toolkit has certainly been tested. And there have been times when I've put it to better use. And the fact is, we need an ever-evolving toolkit. The things that were accessible to me in January, February of last year are vastly different to what's accessible to me now. Kids are at school. I'm going for every morning without fail. I go out and move in nature's beauty. And that, for me, is something that I call it my health non-negotiable. Yeah, for me to be able to be clear-headed and energetic and sort of feel aligned, I need to move.
Yeah. And that is
just
so
wasn't accessible.
Yes, yeah, I know. Yes, this is exactly it. It wasn't accessible for me as well. And it is so important. I do my morning workout, and that's got nothing to do with this whole, you talked about how some, fitness, we're so obsessed with fitness that it can become a bit toxic. But to me, this whole just movement, I feel like such a nicer person to me and to our children, to everyone, to be around, because I've moved, I've just left everything behind, and I've just, whether it is, I did my weights this morning, but whether it is that walking up to school, I see you running past me on the way back sometimes, that is it's such a big deal. And when that's taken away from you, as you say, it's a loss of autonomy, it's a loss of being able to control your own day-to-day life. It's bloody hard. It's bloody hard. Yeah. And
there are still ways that we can do that. Like, I look at what we were doing as a little family unit in that winter lockdown. I took the kids out religiously every day. Didn't matter what the weather was. We went out. So I was still moving and I was still in nature, but it wasn't exactly the shape that really makes me feel like I'm cooking with gas. Yeah. And every single day there was some kind of yoga. I have to be honest with you, as a yoga teacher, I didn't roll out my mat in that period. Life was just too full. But every single day I did some kind of yoga, whether it was some kind of morning ritual to just open up my body to receive a more complete breath, or it was something, a breathing practice to help me weather the home learning. And then when the kids were in the bath, I'd be down on the floor doing some stretches. Like, it's always doable, but when it's not in the shape that you really desire, there is a very natural grieving, and it's okay if we can make peace with that. But let's keep being creative in how we can nourish ourselves. So I think it's acknowledging those feelings, allowing ourselves to feel frustrated and all the rest of it, but also how can we be creative in finding other ways that we can nourish ourselves. But what I will say there is that when you're feeling frazzled and overwhelmed, it's bloody hard to be creative. And that's why I've written so many books.
Exactly. That's what
to give it to you. Here it is. Try this.
But this is exactly it. I think it's really important. Two things you're saying is like, acknowledge the feeling. It's okay not to be okay. And it's one of those things you hear all the time, but it is so true. And it's okay to say, I've had a crap day, or it's okay to say I'm feeling really low. But then at some point we've got to then think, okay, so I've acknowledged this, I'm in this situation. What can I do about it? So what do you recommend then to your clients? I guess because it's not everything is going to suit every person. It's not one size fits all. So where do you normally start? Well,
I like to create a bespoke toolkit for each person, but it's based on my framework, the vitality wheel. So there is, the fact is, human beings are human beings. We all need similar things to be able to function. But what shape that takes in someone's life varies enormously. And so that vitality wheel, it's all very intuitive stuff. We're talking about nutrition, hydration, movement, time in nature, social connection, mood boosting activities like creativity or hobbies or fun. And then the other kind of spokes of the wheel are looking at goal setting and reflecting on our accomplishments, and also our values and our strengths. So it's kind of like I use that as like a mind map for clients to be able to say, okay, these are the ways that I can nourish myself. There are 8 different spokes to that vitality wheel. This is how I can top up my energy bank. But what will that look like today? So if I sort of fancy nature, okay, so in that winter lockdown, I couldn't go out for my lovely solo silent walks, but I could still take the kids out with me and we could do something. It was like, what is resonant and what's accessible? And that framework will always help you identify something in the moment when we need it the most.
Yeah. I love that. And that vitality wheel was in the Self-Care Revolution, wasn't it? That's when
it's in all of my books.
Is it all of them? Perfect. I remember seeing it in that book the first time around. Yeah. No, it's really interesting, because I was always like, I need to eat well. And then I was always just so lazy, but then I started adding exercise, and it just added another thing on, and I just felt, wow, this is helping even more. And then but then it's things like I need to get I want to ask you about your journal in a minute, because that's another thing, like taking time out to just write down how you're feeling, or write anything down, and just, instead of being present in everything else that is, all the noise around you, that's another thing that I think could be really, really important. Is that where that book came?
Yes,
and breathe,
exactly.
Yeah.
I wanted to write and breathe to help people get clear on what this actually means for them.
Yes.
Yeah. And how to break this down into healthy habits that we can weave into everyday life. Yeah. So it was looking at the vitality wheel and thinking about, okay, so in terms of sleep and rest and relaxation, okay, we know that sleep is important, but actually, what does that look like for me? How many hours of sleep do I need? What are my windows of sleep? When am I, if I go to bed at this time, is that when I'm most naturally likely to drop off with greater ease? When should I set the intention to get up? What does rest look like? What does that facilitate in your life? So it's kind of, I think when it comes to making any sustainable lifestyle change, it's not enough to know what you want to do. So that it's about getting clear on what the nuts and bolts are, but underneath it, we've got to connect with the why, the personal purpose, the meaning to it. So the journal is very much about, we know these things are helpful, but what does it mean for you? Why is it important? And what shape does it need to take in your life right now? Yeah. Bearing in mind that in, 6 months' time, it might look completely different. So you come back to the journal and we do some fresh action planning, because life keeps evolving, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think the why is really important, because you're not going to be as motivated or as inspired every day. But if you remember what your why is, then it's easier. Yeah. As I said, just have my alarm set on 6 o'clock in the morning, because I know that after I've done my morning workout, I feel smug as anything and I feel great. And my why is that I want to have that feeling, and I want to treat my body the way I think it needs to be treated. But if I just think, I need to be fit or whatever, that's not a good enough reason for me. That's not a why that gets me up in the morning.
Totally. And I think with any sort of goal that we set, I think one of the reasons why our goals fail us is that then they don't sufficiently motivate us until we've articulated the purpose behind it. So I'm really honest with my clients. I don't expect them to care about sleep or healthy nutrition or hydration or exercise. I don't expect them to care about self-care. But actually what they do care about is what these things facilitate in their life.
Yeah.
And as soon as you get clear on that, it's like, do you know what? If I do this thing, that's what allows me to be the kind of mum that I aspire to be. When I do that, that helps me stay married. When I do this, I can actually sit here in front of my tribe and talk with authenticity. I do not want to sacrifice any of those things. Those things become super important to me. And one, it doesn't just boost your motivation. It actually dials down resistance. It dials down guilt. Do I feel guilty about nourishing myself? Hell no, because that's what allows me to be who I aspire to be.
Yeah, and I think so many people feel guilty about it, because I think it's some sort of indulgence and just having a bath or sitting down to read a book and leaving the dishes and the house going to fall apart. It's not about that at all, because do you know what? So my eldest daughter is about to turn 9, and I remember having the home visit from the health visitor, and she took one look at me and she said, you're not looking after yourself. And I was like, well, how do you expect me to be doing that? And she's like, well, there's no point. You come first, then the baby. And I just thought she was insane. But she said, no, you have to come first, because otherwise, how are you going to do all of this? And I didn't listen to her then, but obviously nearly 9 years later, it's something that I'm really taking to heart, because it is so true. If I'm not happy, or if I haven't sorted these things out, or if I don't have some sort of toolkit or some sort of way of dealing or maneuvering my life, how am I supposed to serve those people who need me?
Absolutely. I have a little mantra: energetic bankruptcy serves no one.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what I learned firsthand when I had my first child. I wanted to give every cell and fiber to her. And it also coincided with my dad's terminal illness. So I wanted to be there for him, and I wanted to be there for my mum. And, you know, pretty quickly, what I learned is that if I allow myself to fall into a heap, you know, those healthy habits dropping away, that incredible depletion, I can't do what I want to do. And if I can't do it for me, I have to do it for them.
Yeah.
And of course, in that chapter of my life, my healthy habits had to, look completely different to normal. But it was like those absolute non-negotiables. I have to feed my brain. Yeah. I've got to hydrate myself. I've got to do some kind of gentle movement so I've got access to a sense of humor. Yeah. I need to prioritize rest. And I need to draw on the love and support of people around me. Self-care is not about doing it all on your own.
No.
But self-care does facilitate us in reaching out. Yeah. It's about advocating for ourselves, asking for help, and also shaping the help that is offered to us.
Yes,
yeah.
This is so big. Yes, because I think we are surrounded by lots of people, but I think the loneliest we've ever been. I mean, I've certainly felt lonely in a house full of people the past 2 years. Yeah. Not all the time, but sometimes. And I think, and we feel like I can't be doing this all on my own, but we shouldn't either. You know, It's okay to ask for help. It's when people offer you help, take it. If it feels right for you, take it. I think you're so spot on there, because I think we think like, I don't know, going on maternity, you're supposed to do it all yourself. No, you're not. You know?
Yeah, we need to challenge that belief, don't we? That we need to operate in silos, and
then the
fact is, people need people. We need people. Yeah. Everyone does.
Yes, exactly. And we're not meant to do this all ourselves. We're not. And, there's nothing we should, we do what works for us. I wanted to touch upon the fact that you also work with one-to-one clients, which must be, I can just imagine what it's like having you as a coach. How has that worked during lockdown? Have you had virtual meetings, or
I've been so lucky. I've been so lucky that I've been able to continue working. Like it was a pivot. Before the pandemic, I would see most of my clients in person. A lot of those sessions were walk and talk sessions, and I still love doing that. But I love now that location is not a barrier, and I've got clients all over the globe. Really the only barrier is time difference. We Zoom or we talk over the phone, and it's, we walk the path together. That's it. It's kind companionship. It's a safe place. It's someone to brainstorm with, and someone to, sit on your shoulder and keep you accountable. I love the one-to-one work. It's a privilege to partner with people and to see them bloom.
Yeah, this is it's true vocation, isn't it? You see the results. That's why you're doing it. And have you noticed, you said they're all global? Is there still a sort of common thread or a common theme as to why people contact you, or are we very different?
I think there are three sort of broad themes. There's navigating stress, there's navigating loss, there's navigating change. But essentially the one common thread is empowering people with nourishing practices and the skill set that helps us heal and restore and re-energize.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, it's definitely something I'm on the journey with, to learning more about, because it is, you do notice how much better you function as a person, and how much happier you are and content when you have those tools available and you know how to use them. So I think it's so important, the work you're doing. Can I just ask before we wrap up, if somebody thinks, I don't know where to begin, I feel complete overwhelmed, I feel like I'm still stressed about the whole world at the moment, I've got so much I should be doing, all of these things, where do you suggest people begin? Because you know, booking in with you is the obvious choice, but where would you say, where's the low, what's the word? Can you tell I've been in Norway for 10 days? I can't speak proper English anymore. Where's sort of the entry level? Where can you start?
I would say start as small as possible. Think about one nourishing habit or one nourishing practice that really speaks to you. Maybe it's something that you used to do, or maybe it's something that you're excited about trying, and just commit to doing that one thing every single day. Okay. And I'm talking about doing 6 mountain breaths. You know, breathe in, raise the arms, out and up, look up, exhale, lower your arms back down by your sides. Do 6 of those. It's roughly going to take you 1 minute. Okay, so I'm not talking about, hey, carve the time for an hour yoga practice or an hour. I'm talking 1 minute, and do it daily, because what that provides us is an opportunity to check in. It's an opportunity to just extend a little tenderness towards ourselves. And I tell you what, seriously beautiful things grow from that practice alone. But really, the nub of it is do it every day. If you say, I'll do this 3 times a week, you'll always say, it's Monday. I can do that Tuesday. You get to Tuesday. I can do it on Friday, Saturday. It will never happen. But do it every single day, and let it be something that is just about your nourishment, something that calls to you, whether it's a minute of reflective writing, whether it's looking out the window and just gazing at the canopy of moving trees in the distance, whether it's savoring a hug, something just for you. And it's incredibly powerful, even though it's something so simple and so small. But that's where I would start.
Yeah, I love that. It's small steps to wellness, isn't it? One small step at a time. Yeah, but it is true. Right. It is true. That's how, and you build a habit, and before you know it, it's automatic. You go and boil the kettle, and you do your breath.
That's right.
And then
you can look at the next incremental wave of change. And this is what I'm talking about. This is how you design your day. Yeah. I've literally designed my day from waking to when my head hits the pillow, and it's an accumulation. 30 seconds here, a kind word here, this practice, that, right? And this is how I feel alive.
Yeah. Yes, and we need that. We need to just not just exist, but to feel alive, right?
Yeah.
This is so true. This is so true, because I think we've been existing for so long, and it's time to actually realize, you know, we deserve to get out of this a little bit, and there are ways that we can get out of it a little bit. I love this. Yeah. What's the best way of getting in touch with you for people who've listened to this and go, I need to find out more about Suzy Reading?
Well, I share loads of different tips and tools on my Instagram feed. So if anyone's thinking, I don't know where to start, give me some inspiration. You will find it in spades, in particular on my IGTV feed, loads of different videos. And come and hang out with me on a Monday morning, 9 a.m. UK time. That's where I do a live session where I can answer questions, and we set ourselves up for the week there. And then there's a link to my website there. And I welcome people to join that community, because it is there is a real beating heart to it. Yeah. There's a lot of genuine care. Come and hang out with me there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it really, really is. Those videos are really, really good, actually. How can people get your books? Where can they find them? Because I found mine in the local bookshop, but where can you?
Yes, they're stocked in most Waterstones. If they're not stocked in your local bookshop, please ask them, order them in. They're widely available online. Amazon's always a safe bet. And if anyone's enjoyed my books, it would just mean the world to me if they left a little Amazon review, because that makes so much difference to people actually being able to find them. So that would be a great gift.
Yes, exactly. I will put all of this in the show notes so people can read the titles again. But yeah, the journal. I didn't even get a chance to talk about the journal and breathe, but we spoke about how it's going to help us navigate our situation, and this is something definitely I need to be doing. There you go again. I've realized that it's probably going to serve me. Journal. So very quickly at the end, how is And Breathe going to, or how is it helping you? How can it help me?
It will help you find clarity. It will help you break things down so that you'll know this is the first little incremental wave of change I'm going to take a look at. And it'll give you inspiration along the way.
Yeah. I love it. And it looks pretty too.
Yeah.
And I love a book that speaks to me in, you know, aesthetically as well. I think it looks really beautiful, the book. So
they've done such a good job of making it, it's a feast for the senses.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you want
so
to have that because you want to open it, don't you? You want to, get cracking with it. I am off to get that, I think, because I've seen you use it on Instagram and I thought that looks really nice, and it's accessible because it doesn't require you to write a whole lot every day, and you just take a few minutes to kind of sit there and reflect. Yes, exactly. And that's
dip in as and when.
Yes.
That's all.
That's the genius of you though, Suzy. All of these things that you're doing, it's so accessible, and it's not, as you say, it's not a brick that you have to read from start to finish. You dip in where it suits you, where it serves you then and there. And I think that's really, it's such a powerful thing because it makes it all completely doable. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. As I said, to anyone who wants to get in touch with you, I'll put everything out in the show notes. So if you're listening to this, then just scroll down and you'll see all the information about Suzy.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Maria. I'm really, really grateful.
Oh, lovely. I'll speak to you very soon. I'll hopefully see you run past me one morning. And
I look forward to that.
I'll wave. Thank you so much again. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
You've been listening to the Small Steps to Wellness show with Mari Craig. I am passionate about helping mums get their energy back through simple nutritional changes, because we know that if mummy is happy, the family's happy. If you would like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram under @smallstepstowellness, or visit my website smallstepstowellness.info. Speak to you soon.